Can we get it right this time around? Professor Joash seems to understand everything about INEC, even before his confinement. 16th October 2025 is a remarkable date for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, because a new chairman is confirmed for the commission in person of Professor Joash Amupitan, son by the Nigerian Senate. During his screening, Amupitan made it clear, made several commitments and observations relevant to electoral integrity and technology. And notably among those observations is that he acknowledged that the 2023 elections were marred by public confusion over the role of technology, especially the INEC result viewing portal, IREF. He observed that before the election, there was ambiguity in law and in public understanding about what IREF was supposed to do. In particular, he said it was not clarified that IREF was not an electoral collation system. He pledged to order a comprehensive audit of INEC's technology, all the technological infrastructure to ensure reliability ahead of future elections, just to avoid the past mistakes. Let us listen to him, and I will be back.
Very well, sir. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, the purpose of introducing BVAS and IREF was to ensure the integrity of the election, and that is the purpose of technology all over the world. I believe what happened in 2023, which was subsumed as a glitch, before we went into the election, my own understanding and based on the review of the decisions of Supreme Court, we found that there was no clarity as to the purpose of BVAS, of IREF. Not until the Supreme Court came out to say that IREF was not an electronic collation system. And that position was not properly brought out before the election. The INEC was supposed to be a safeguard for comparison, because the laws made by this distinguished Senate did not do away with manual collation. However, IREF was supposed to provide some guarantees and checks and balances. But owing to the issues of glitches, which in simple time, I understand as improper configuration, especially during the presidential election, that eroded the confidence of so many people. So, as His Excellency the Senate President said, I have to audit the system, if I'm given the opportunity, to see what is actually wrong and whether we have what it takes as it is now. Because it is not just the INEC responsibility alone. You have the other agencies like NCC, NIMC, and the service providers that will have to work together to ensure that we give Nigerians a technology that everybody will be happy about. And I want to believe that the question of the minority leadership is also similar to that. There would definitely be an audit of what the system we're meeting, and especially of the logistic of the election itself, and ensure that the proper strategy is put in place. We all know the problem. So we'll find a proper strategy to be able to confront those problems headlong. I give one example. Logistic problem. We rely on third-party logistics to transport sensitive election materials. Some of the vehicles, when you see them, they are old. And they don't even go far. And when they drop the materials, they don't even remain to bring back. So when they abandon the voting and the results, and collation is made or to transport, you now have to be hiring machines and so we need to take it serious and ensure, even if INEC has to go into some form of logistic on its own to ensure that that aspect. I'm just giving one example that I know. Thank you, sir.
Professor Joash promised to work with the legislature and other stakeholders for legal reforms to clarify gray areas in the Electoral Act, especially where ambiguity around technology is concerned. We need not repeat the past. For this reason, Professor Joash's responses to the Senate show awareness that past promises or representations were misunderstood, miscommunicated, or technically inaccurate. And he appears to be committed to addressing those gaps given by what he said before the Senate. You recall that Professor Mahmood Yakubu chaired INEC from 2015 until October 2025, at this month that a new INEC chairman is on board now. And before and during the 2023 general elections, Professor Mahmood made several assurances regarding use of technology like BVAS, that is a bimodal voter accreditation system, and IREF, and electronic transmission from real-time sharing of results. That was the promise he dished out to Nigerians. But many Nigerians and observers argue that these promises were never fulfilled. For those who may have forgotten, let me remind you of some of those promises. First is that the assurances he gave about uploading results and real-time sharing of whatever transpired there. Professor Yakubu had repeatedly said that results will be uploaded to the IREF portal to citizens, so citizens could see them pulling unit by pulling result as they were being made available. He also said that BVAS machines will never fail and that the technology would ensure transparency. But is that what we got? It wasn't. The second item is that is the legal and technical constraints and deniers. However, in some cases, Yakubu and INEC also considered that raw results will not be transmitted electronically. And that is one reason given, and the only reason given was to avoid hacking and manipulation, since raw figures are more susceptible to hacking. Another issue raised by observers is that while IREF was described in public messaging as enhancing transparency, its actual legal status and role were ill-defined. For example, a court ruling later determined that INEC had discretion over whatever means to use to transmit results, either electronically or not. That was the court ruling. And then the third item is it. Some civil society actors and analysts have accused Yakubu's INEC of promising more than it could deliver, using e-transmission of results as a slogan to restore confidence, knowing fully well that many technical, legal, or logistical impediments will block full implementation. Yet, he gave Nigeria these fake promises. For instance, Business Day wrote of how many people believe that those promises to transmit results electronically were a kind of deceit, while in practice, the Commission delayed or did not upload polling unit level results promptly and used intermediary systems such as the CS, RVS device managers or delaying upload via IREF that critics say allowed manipulation, at least or at least obscured the transparency of the whole process. And then the fourth item is the legal outcome confirming the discretion and or failure to transmit the result. In the presidential election petition court, there was a ruling that INEC had the discretion as to the method of transmitting results, which means everything from the beginning was a deceit. That undercuts claims that real-time transmission was guaranteed by law. Also, reports show that many results from polling units were not immediately or automatically uploaded. Delays, technical glitches, or manual collation dominated the whole process. In summary, the former chairman's rhetoric exceeded the actual practice. Promises of transparency and technology were made, but many of those promises either were never kept, were miscommunicated to the electorate, or depended on the conditions that involve legal, technical, or logistical that were not met or disclosed to the Nigerian populace. Let us examine how and where Yakubu's INEC misled or failed Nigerians and the consequences of that failure. Putting the two sides together, here are critical observations about how the former INEC leadership stand on election technology misled Nigerians and what the damage has caused or it has been in the face of Nigerians. Nuclear or unclear definitions and expectations is foremost. Using terms like real-time uploading, electronic transmission, and viewing portal without clear definitions of legal or technical terms allow for public misunderstanding. Nigerians' health results will be electronically transmitted, and they bought to it, they key into it, and assumed instant from polling unit transmission and collation. But that wasn't the outcome. But in law of electoral acts or regulations, and in practice, some of those guarantees did not exist or were qualified. INEC under Yakubu often said IREF was only for viewing results, that is, for post-polling unit uploading, not for collation or confirmation. This distinction was important but was not clear or clearly stated from the beginning, ahead or during the elections. So Nigerians were left confused. The Electoral Acts, as amended in 2022, provides for technology, but certain sections, example like the section 64, remain vague or leave discretion to INEC. Some of the legal ambiguity could have been addressed before the 2023 polls, but it was what? They were never addressed. By promising more than what the law clearly mandate, INEC created expectations it could not meet. That is, by opening itself to criticism and legal challenges. Nigeria has challenges with consistent internet access, electricity, the logistics of deploying BVAS machines, and guaranteeing security of data transmission. These were never taken into consideration. When promises are broken or partially fulfilled, public trust suffers. That is why Nigerians no longer have trust in INEC. If people believe that election results are delayed because of technical excuses or that promise transparency is only partial, then cynicism grows. Civil society and opposition parties have seized on the gap between promise and delivery of delivery question to INEC's impartiality. It calls for a question. This undermines the legitimacy of both the institution and the election outcomes. And that is why Nigerians no longer believe in what INEC is doing. As seen how some of the promises or representations became issues in court. This is where the story is. For example, claims about whether INEC had to transmit raw results or whether all polling units results were uploaded became focal points in election petition cases. Court decisions confirm that INEC has discretion, often reinforcing that promises of electronic transmission are not mandatory unless clearly specified, and they are not specified in the courts or in the rules. The Constitution does not clearly specify that. Given the problems of the past, Amupitan's stated commitments are encouraging, but their credibility will depend on follow through. How well is he going to follow through all these promises? My humble opinion is that Professor Joash should work towards amending Electoral Act to clearly define what electronic transmission means. What must be transmitted, either raw results or collected results? Let it be stated out so that Nigerians will be clear about this. From what unit? Is it a polling unit or what unit? And in what time? Is it real time that the result will be transmitted? It should define legal recourse and penalties for failure to comply to serve as deterrent. Amupitan's promise of a comprehensive audit of INEC's technological infrastructure should include independent verification, maybe from civil society or tech experts, so that stakeholders can see whether the systems INEC is using are fit for purpose. There should be testing of systems in advance and publicly to build credibility. They can't do it in isolation. If they want to do this, the public should be involved so that they can test it. Clear and honest communication about what technology will do, its limitations, and what users, that is the voters, political parties, and agents can expect. Let them know what they should be expecting. Ambiguous phrases should be avoided in all circumstances. INEC chairman should educate the public, that is civic education, about what IREF is. Let people know that it is a viewing portal, not necessarily a collection system. If that remains the case, it should be clearly stated. Professor Joash should ensure that Beaver's machines are functional, network connectivity is reliable, that polling units have access to power or backup, and that training for officials is robust. There should be effective monitoring of internet coverage, data security, and reduce possibility of tampering or delays. INEC and its leadership need to be held accountable for failures. If promises are made, they should be met or kept, or else explanation should be given or provided. Perhaps they should establish or strengthen oversight by the legislature, judiciary, civil society, or an independent audit commission. My final take is that the confirmation of Amupitan as INEC chairman comes at a time when Nigerians are deeply skeptical of previous promises made by his predecessor regarding technology, especially the use of beavers and IREF to transmit and display election results. After the 2023 general elections, many saw those promises as either deliberately vague or outright misleading. Amopitan has correctly identified some of those failures, to include misunderstanding of IRF, ambiguity in law, and failure of transparency. However, words will not suffice. The true test of Amopitan's leadership will be whether he can deliver legal reforms, technological improvements, operational reliability, and credible elections, in which even the electorate believes the elections are so credible that even the loser will congratulate the winner. That's what we look up to. To use his own phrase, only by doing so can he begin to repair the damage done to INEC's trustworthiness under the leadership of Yakubu. Thank you, and drop your comment below.